It's time for Windows Weekly. We've got a great show, a special show for you. Paul Thurrott, Mary Jo Foley are down in Anaheim, California at the Build Conference, where just 2 days ago, Windows 8, the developer preview, was released. They've got their analysis and lots of guests. Windows Weekly is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com. This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. Episode 226, recorded September 15th, 2011, live from Anaheim and the Build Conference, Windows 8 Revealed. Windows Weekly is brought to you by Gazelle, the easy way to sell or recycle your used gadgets, and Newegg.com, the place on the internet to shop for tech. Gazelle it today and receive a gift card from Newegg at Newegg.com/trade. And by Netflix. Watch thousands of TV episodes and movies on your Mac, PC, iPad, iPhone, or TV instantly. All streamed directly to you, saving you time, money, and hassle. For your free 30-day trial, go to Netflix.com/twit. And by Audible.com. To download a free audiobook of your choice, go to Audible.com/Windows. It's time for Windows Weekly, and a very big Windows Weekly it is indeed. All the way from Anaheim, California, Mary Jo Foley and Paul Thurrott, they're in the same room fighting over stuff like brothers and sisters. Hey, it's great to see you there at the Build Conference.
We are.
Yep. As you can see in scenic downtown Anaheim.
Beautiful, I tell you. I love the backdrop. Obviously, spent millions of dollars building that. And I see in front of you a tablet. So let's just briefly summarize that on Tuesday, Steven Sinofsky took the stage for the keynote and demonstrated Windows 8 Revealed All. Everybody who is at the Build Conference, all 5,000 developers are getting this particular Samsung tablet running Windows 8. And they offered for download Windows 8 that night, and last count, more than 500,000 people downloaded it.
Right.
Yep.
So all
right,
very
I
exciting.
I think that's the whole show.
Okay, thank you, everybody. See you later. I'm glad you could join us, and so long from Windows Weekly.
There's really not much else to say.
So let's start with you, Paul, and then we'll get Mary Jo's thoughts. What do you think? What have we learned here today?
What have we learned? We've learned so much. Well, obviously Microsoft's going forward with this kind of a hybrid strategy where Windows 8 is going to have both a touch-centric UI, or touch-first UI as they call it, as well as the old classic desktop. And we'll see how successful that is. I mean, I think it's one of those things we need to spend some time with before we're fully settled on it. I mean, I talked to, actually with Steven Sinofsky, who was telling me, you know, people are so traumatized by these transitions, but then it always works out fine in the end. And he was talking about in the old days when Microsoft went from Program Manager to Windows 95, a lot of the power user types immediately replaced the desktop with Program Manager as the startup interface because they couldn't handle, you know, the new stuff, even though they were, you know, supposedly power users. And we saw that with Windows Vista when they had that new start menu and people wanted the classic start menu, or rather Windows 7, which got rid of it. And now we're seeing it again with this new start screen. People, you know, the first thing people want to do is, well, how do I get rid of this, you know, which is dumb, and you know, in some ways, because this is, of course, the point of all this stuff. So I think on the good news front, this UI is very fast and fluid, as they say.
Fast and fluid.
Which it is, and it is pretty. It's beautiful. I think when you see this in stores a year from now, next to iPads and Android tablets, people are going to look at them and say, "My God, this thing over here is gorgeous." You know, this is the pretty one. And you know, it offers that backwards compatibility, and of course, they're doing the right thing by developers as well, and they're going to support all of the professional programming languages, the .NET programming languages, as well as the web standards, HTML5 stuff. So I'd say, you know, overall it's a win. I mean, we need some more time to kind of get settled with it, but it looks good so far.
How about you, Mary Jo? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I was really impressed with the UI, and I think it's going to be really a great way to have more people see the Windows Phone look and feel on a bigger screen. Because Windows Phone, as we all know, hasn't been overly successful to date. And a lot of people have never even seen this tile menu. And once you see it, I think you realize, like, wow, these live tiles are really cool. It's a new way. Instead of, static icons, you have these dynamic tiles. I think it's going to be a really nice look and feel. And the people I've talked to here, the developers who are here, there's about 5,000 plus developers here at the convention center. They're here learning about this new UI and how to program applications to take advantage of the UI and it's quite I think it's going to be quite a learning curve for them, actually, because even though, as Paul said, you can use all the existing .NET languages and HTML and JavaScript, there's some things that have changed underneath at the lower levels of the operating system. There's this new thing called WinRT that people are learning about here for the first time, and that's kind of like the guts of the operating system right above the kernel level. So it's a very different programming paradigm for them, and it's going to take, I think, some learning for people to figure out exactly what it means to program for the new UI. But once they do, there's going to be a whole set of new kinds of applications in the new Windows Store that is going to be part of this whole tablet package, and it'll be a really different experience for people who only think of Microsoft as having the old UI and the Start button. It'll feel very modern to them, I think.
How do you think, Paul, business customers are going to react to this?
They're screwed, Leo. No. No, it's funny. Months and months ago, I talked with the Windows team, and it was before they were really saying anything about Windows 8. And I said, you guys are going gangbusters on Windows 7 deployments and businesses, but that happened with XP. And, of course, the result of that is that the next version doesn't get deployed as broadly. I mean, aren't you worried about that kind of thing? And at the time, they said something that was sort of cryptic, but it makes sense today, which was that we really don't, from Microsoft's perspective, we don't really care whether businesses roll out Windows 7 or Windows 8, because from a deployment perspective or from a business perspective, those two OSs are almost identical. And what we've seen so far with Windows 8 is that basically, aside from there are some small changes, but they are going to be able to turn off this interface. That will create a no training situation where you'll have some users on 7, some on 8, and to those users, these things are basically the same. And so that's kind of a good situation for them. And then the additional capabilities for business users over 7, really not that dramatic. A couple things, like I said, but nothing big. So in some ways, this is a continuation of Windows 7 from a business perspective. So if there are businesses out there that haven't deployed yet and maybe they were waiting for this, I mean, there's no real reason to wait, because my understanding of the group policy stuff on this is you can turn it off, you can turn it on, but you really can't manage the Metro-style apps from group policy.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
This is really a consumer play.
Although I think the one interesting thing that we still don't know definitively is whether or not you're going to be able to run legacy apps on the ARM version of a Windows 8 tablet. I think the answer is no, right?
Is no. I mean, yeah,
the answer is no.
Actually, the bigger question in some ways is whether or not the ARM version of this tablet will even have the desktop, right? It's not just...
I don't think it will.
I don't think it will either, right?
Yeah.
So I think, and they know this, right? As Steven Sinofsky, without spelling it out, said, look, we get it. This could be confusing to people, so we're going to be obvious about it in the marketing. It doesn't make sense for us to confuse customers, but there are going to be versions of these Windows 8 tablets that run on ARM that are going to look just like an iPad, be that thin, have no fan and so forth. And it will only have this UI. It won't have the desktop or the legacy apps. And then there'll be these more full-featured ones and bigger ones, and of course desktops and laptops and whatnot that will run on the Intel stuff, and that will have the backwards compatibility. So, how they market that is unclear, but I think it looks like that's where they're going.
Yeah.
So the tablet in front of you, that's a Intel-based, yes?
Yeah.
It is.
And it looks large. What is the screen size on that?
So actually, it's interesting. It's an 11.6-inch 16:9 display. It's 1366 by 768. I don't have my iPad here, unfortunately, but if I did, what you would see is that this height is the same, but an iPad goes to about, say, here, maybe 3/4 of the way up. So you've got this additional wideness, if you will.
Right.
The other big difference between this and an iPad, well, actually, I guess there are several differences. This is a computer, and iPad is a device, right? So this has a fan, and there's all the badness.
It has a fan. Wow.
Yeah.
It does.
Well, it's a computer.
It doesn't have a keyboard, but it's a tablet
No,
computer.
it does.
It does have a computer. Oh, okay.
It does. And, you can use it with a mouse. We got a mouse here. We can go through that later. But
Oh, I see the keyboard. I'm sorry. I had your lower third was covering it. There it is. Okay,
sorry, we do have. There's a keyboard.
Oh,
So it's a
interesting.
full computer. Remember, these are all of these are full computers, and that's the point. I mean, months ago they did a unfortunately confusing demo where they showed an old version of Office running on ARM, which is never going to happen. And I think the reason they did that is they wanted to say, look, this isn't compact or embedded or some other weird thing that looks like Windows. It's Windows. I think that's what they were trying to say, but you know, that's actually not going to happen in real life. I don't know why they did that demo, but this
Right.
particular machine is a computer.
Yeah, I was going to say, yesterday, Steve Ballmer said here, we're going to do a Metro version of Office 15. I mean, he basically said that. So, you know, what that actually looks like and what it is under the covers, you know, is it a web version of Office? What is that thing? We don't know at all, right?
They're gonna call it iWork.
Nice.
I
WinWork.
think that's what it's called. Yeah. So, but you know, aside from the physicality of it, I think the big difference between this and an iPad is this horizontal orientation. You know, the start button is in the middle in this orientation, not in portrait, right? Like Apple does it. Now you can still.
Is there
so
there's a physical start button at the bottom?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is. So you can hold it in this portrait way, and it still works, right? And this is true of all the UI. So as you go through,
And that really is smooth. I have to say
it's
that
unbelievable. It's silly how fast this is.
Yeah.
And when you get into a that doesn't work. So I'm trying to think of something that would make sense. If you were to run an app, these are basically HTML style applications. And this so this one actually doesn't work. Most of these, it's up to the developer, but most of those apps
Will rotate.
will rotate. I should try. Maybe I can
There
find
it
one.
is.
Oh, there. Actually, it's just slower than crap. So.
Well, it probably has to redraw all those elements. I mean, that's one of the things about a web.
Remember, though, IE10 is hardware accelerated. I mean, there's no reason you can't write a pretty decent app like this in HTML and JavaScript and all that stuff. And they've got nice APIs for that stuff.
This is a nice device. So it has that dock.
Yeah.
Is the keyboard a Bluetooth keyboard?
Yes, it is.
Yep.
And it has Windows, effectively like Windows 7 underneath the Metro interface? Or
Yeah, so actually, I don't know if you can see this too
you
well.
just tilt it a little bit because the glare is
me see
it's
if I
great
can
when
see
you
it.
were holding it. Yeah,
Really?
you can
Okay,
probably
let's
see
I'll pull up
better
the-
than I can.
So tell me if that makes.
that looks pretty good. Yeah,
Okay. So there's a desktop button here, and when you go to,
I got it.
oh, I've got the full programming environment up. So let me see if I can just minimize that.
And this will be true of desktops. But you said
Yes,
that
it's
some
Windows desktop.
tablets will not have a Windows kind of
Well,
underlying.
we don't have them to see, but our belief, I think, is that on an ARM-based system, what you're going to get is that start screen,
Yeah.
and there won't be a desktop button that you won't be able to click through and get to the desktop. Now, there are some things that are unclear about that because there are still some dialogues and systems in Windows that I think need to occur that just are part of Windows. So it's possible on this particular system, I think you do if you search, it actually has a list of all the apps that are installed in the system. It's kind of like the application screen on Windows Phone. And you can get to some legacy apps through here, but not all. And so there's kind of a hokey way you have to go into the desktop. But because on the desktop there's no start screen, you have to really know how Windows works to get in and actually figure out where applications are, and especially some of the more hidden applications or control panels and things like that. But you can access all of it. It's all there. And I think over the next days and weeks, we're going to see a lot of hackers and enthusiasts figure out ways to better expose old features of Windows, because there are going to be people that that just want that stuff. That, as it would be during any transition like this.
Show them again, though, the way you switch between.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. The way you switch.
I told you not to sit so close to me.
The way you switch.
Oh, come
though,
on now, kids!
between-
Don't make me pull this car over.
No, you were-
It's really interesting how you switch between the
Sorry,
two
yeah,
UIs,
super.
right?
Actually,
You can't go backwards that way, right? Yeah.
Sorry.
This
So
is
I'm
great.
on
I mean, you have to understand, folks, we've had this for 2 days. They're just starting to learn how to use this. Has it been pretty reliable, just out of curiosity?
No.
No, okay, just questions. All
In
right.
my defense, it's backwards. So
I know.
Right.
You're like
this
you're
is-
like Ginger Rogers. You're doing it backwards and upside down.
So there's this Edge UI, and
Yeah.
this allows you to
You
have
slid that out? Is that how you get that out? You slide it out? Yeah.
and you can resize it. So right now we've got the desktop full screen, but if I want to bring
Right.
the next thing in, you can flick through what's there, right?
Yep.
And you can also slowly bring in something and you dock it. It's you snap it.
Snap.
It's like an arrow
Yep.
snap. And you can determine how much space, which is on. You can switch the sides. You can bring it back, and then you can also just, if I can close this, you can. I don't have many things running. I'm sorry, but you can quickly if I do it. Yeah, it's hard from behind, but you can quickly switch. I just can't do it because of the orientation, but you can really kind of flick through all of the running application.
But show again, like when you're in the original screen, the way you get to the Windows desktop, all you have to do is hit desktop. Like that's it. You don't have to do anything fancy to switch between desktop and the tile UI. I mean, that's pretty good. You know, I think a lot of people thought it was going to be a convoluted way to go from the old UI to the new UI, right?
Yeah, and also it's possible to pin classic applications because typically the reason you go into the desktop is to do something very specific. So this isn't a great example probably, but Visual Studio, for example, is one of the things. That's a classic, or what they're calling a desktop application. And you click on that, and it just goes right to the desktop
Because
app.
you've pinned it to the desktop.
Because it's pinned to the desktop.
Very much like you would do in a Metro interface on a phone, on a Windows
Exactly.
phone.
Exactly right.
Yep.
And sort of, if you use Windows 7, sort of the way you would do it if you pinned an app to your taskbar.
Right. So really, you, at the beginning, Paul, you likened this to the Start menu. It is, in a way, a replacement for the Start menu.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, honestly, the coolest thing about this from my perspective is, as a fan of Windows Phone, and you kind of watch that thing languish in the market, and nobody really knows it exists, this is going to put that interface and all of the language and terminology that goes along with it. All of the terms are basically the same. All the things are the same. They have live tiles. They do the same things. And it all comes from Windows Phone.
Right.
And I love that because, A, it's going to get something that I've always felt is a great interface out in front of more people. And then I also think once people start getting this interface on PCs, they're going to look at the phones and say, wait a minute, I can get this on a phone?
Yep.
And they're going to want that.
Well, and to that point, Microsoft's using the word apps. I mean, they're really saying they're not saying applications or programs. These are apps.
Yep.
Yeah, so one of the things I'm struggling with, because I need to write a book about this, is what do we call things? And I'm paying very special attention to the terminology that Microsoft uses. And one thing I've decided is that the Metro-style apps, the apps that are these full-screen, immersive, tailored apps, as they call them, those to me are apps. And the things that run on the desktop, those are applications. And that's how I'm going to distinguish.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Yep. But Microsoft is pushing these apps. I mean, this is how they really are thinking of it, is apps.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, and the tablet that we all got to play with comes with a bunch of these apps, and they were actually developed by a bunch of interns who worked at Microsoft.
Interns. Wow.
Yes.
And
intern labor.
And these apps are CSS, JavaScript, HTML5 style apps.
Yeah, so they have the thing, like, remember we talked on our previous show about Tweetorama,
right.
The Twitter client that they've developed. That was something developed by one of the interns. And then there's SocialLite, which is like a Facebook-type application, right? So they have these little kind of like test apps that we think are probably going to be in the store in some way when the tablet ships.
Right. Just like you can get the sample apps for Windows Phone today still from the Windows Phone marketplace.
Yeah.
They're nice. I mean, actually, I don't, it's hard to see. I mean, the weather app, for example, is...
the chat room was saying you should show the weather app. Is that a particularly nice...
It's just pretty.
Oh,
I
it
don't
is
know
pretty.
If
Now, I'm downloading the developer preview. Will running it on a computer, get the same interface?
Yes. Now, I have it over... Well, actually, right now I'm in Windows 7. So I've installed this in a few different places. I've got it in a virtual machine. But on my Windows 7 laptop, the one I brought for the show, I installed it in a dual boot. And this will be impossible to demo, but I've got it set up with actually, grab the keyboard 1 second. You can do, so with the keyboard, you can still do Control-Alt-Delete. I'm sorry, you can still do,
you can. No ends to the three-finger salute. Huh?
You can still switch between apps this way, so that works. And then you can also use a mouse. And it works a little differently in that, let me just get back to the start menu.
This is part of the challenge, is how do you make it work in all three ways that people use Windows?
So with touch, you use these edge UIs to bring up menus or to do different things. Now, in an app, you can actually, I'll go into an app. You can bring down this in IE, and it gives you different things depending on the app. And this app uses both. So you have an app bar on the bottom, and here they have the area for the different tabs at the top. So you can go to different interfaces, and it's very natural. You swipe down, go to a different tab. Swipe down, go to a different tab. So that works well. But now you have a keyboard and a mouse. So how does this work on a keyboard and a mouse? So with a mouse on this interface, to bring up the tabs, you use something that people who use a mouse and keyboard are used to, which is right-click. So when I right-click it, it brings up that same interface. And the way that you go to bring up the Edge UI is, well, you actually have to go back to the Start menu. But then you click in the lower. I can't do it backwards. But you click where the Start button is in Windows 7 in the lower left corner of the screen. So in each case, you're using something that you as a Windows user would be used to to do the thing you want to do, essentially.
And using the mouse too, you can scroll just like you would if you were doing it with your finger, right? So this is kind of handy. So you go down to this little bar down at the very bottom.
I'm doing with those scroll mouse. So right now I'm using the scroll mouse.
Yeah, and so you're just moving it the same way as if you were doing it with your hand, right? I mean, so this is what they're thinking. So if you have a laptop that's not a touch laptop, which is what most people have, you still be able to navigate this UI. You won't need to do a different UI. You'll still be able to use that, right?
Yeah, exactly. You just reminded me of the number one question, day two. Day one being the day they get the tablets. Day one, everyone gets the tablets. Everyone spazzes out. They run back to their hotel rooms. You don't hear from them for 12 hours. The first question we get is, how do I shut off one of these apps? I mean, how do I close it? And it's funny because that you don't. I mean, you can, but you shouldn't. There's no reason to, because when that app is not on the screen, it's suspended. And then just as with a phone app, over time, it will simply be taken away from memory. On a Windows PC, you may never have to take them away from memory because there's so much memory.
Plenty of room, yeah.
Right. But the sort of, I don't know that they call it tombstoning or whatever, but the same quality of multitasking that you get on a phone applies here, in the sense that these apps are written to assume that they're going to be destroyed and that they need to be saving their state automatically. No Metro app will ever have a save dialog. All of the state and the data associated with it is saved automatically over time, so that when the user just suddenly hits the start button and you go away from the app, everything gets saved automatically. That's a feature of the OS. Now, if you want to, I guess this will be my tip of the week. We don't really have tips, but I mean, you can run Task Manager in the classic Windows desktop, and you can see those apps in there, and they will say suspended next to them if they're not. Well, they'll all be suspended, because once you have the Task Manager up, none of them are at the front of the screen. But you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
The Metro apps they just sit there. It's you don't.
This seems to be kind of Apple did this with Lion too. It seems to be a trend in operating system design, and it's very much influenced by the constrained environments, the constrained resources, and of phones. And yet, I guess it makes sense not to have to bother the user with the idea of closing an app. Let the computer handle that. It can do it better anyway.
You know, the one thing I think is going to be a challenge, and this was a challenge for me when I took the tablet out of the box, I kind of assumed this was going to work like the iPad. And, it's going to be interesting to see how many people do that. So the first thing I did is held my finger on an icon, and I was waiting for it to start shaking. But of course it never does.
So this will be hard. This will be hard.
Mary Jo.
There's no shake. Even though Microsoft has Arrow Shake, there's no shake.
There's no shake.
Everyone will do that who uses an iPad. So
I know.
Obviously you can rearrange these things. You can also determine how big they are. I don't know if you can see it, but some of them are big and some of them are small.
Right.
The way they do it is they have a kind of a. It's again, I'm behind it, so it's just not going to.
You can pinch them.
No, you kind of swipe down on them.
Wow.
There you go.
There we go. I just had it. Okay, and now you can move the thing around. I'm not going to do it because but you also get this little menu that comes up, and this is how you can determine the size. So I can make that thing smaller, and I can't really tell if you can see that, and I could make it bigger again later. So these tiles have two states essentially that developers can put live information on. Right? There's a small square state, and then a larger rectangular state that has more space, and thus you can provide more information. So the ones that are wide, the weather app has weather for the next 3 days, it looks like. And I bet that if I did this to it and made it small, it would just have an icon representing the weather for today. Because now you have less information, less space.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We're talking Mary Jo Foley, Paul Thurrott. They are live at Build in Anaheim, the Build conference, which has been a coming out party for Windows 8. Microsoft's put together PDC, WinHEC, and Mix into one big, giant, enormous conference. And 5,000 plus developers are there, all playing with their new Samsung tablets. I want to talk.
You can see them all behind us. See how excited they are?
It's Paul. What's great is you decided with your last book to focus on Windows Phone, and now your expertise is going to be really.
And how you laughed!
I laughed. I mocked you. But now your expertise is going to be very much valued because it sounds like the Metro interface is very much informed by Windows Phone 7.
Exactly.
You could just put a sticker on your book cover and say now it's developing for
Don't
Windows
rewrite
8.
it. Yeah. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about performance. And I also want to talk about how close this is to a release version. If Steven Sinofsky addressed that, because in the past Microsoft has done a lot of talking a year ahead of a release of Windows, and stuff has changed significantly. Vista was most notable for that. The change from Longhorn to Vista was dramatic. So I want to talk about that when we come back, but that's when we come back. We want to take a break. I also would like to mention, for those of you watching live, I'm seeing a lot of traffic in the chat room, and we know this. The TWiT site was hacked overnight. TWiT.tv was hacked overnight. And you probably saw the malware warnings from both Firefox and Google Chrome. Our sysadmin tells me that hack, which was an attack on Drupal, the newest version of Drupal that we were using, has since been fixed. As soon as I get more details about what was the hack and whether you are at risk from having visited the site, I will let you know. But I am told by Bear, and I want to get some confirmation of that, but that the hack has been reversed and the site is safe to use, despite the fact that the Google warning at least still is up. You know, I think it takes them a while to check back and see if the malware has been removed from the site. But good news, because both Google Chrome and Firefox noted that there was some malware on the site and blocked you. And I hope you listened to that warning and didn't enter the site. So we will talk in just a little bit with Bear about that and find out what the latest is on that. And we are going to continue to talk about Windows 8. Very exciting in just a moment. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about how to get rid of your old tablet so you can get a new tablet. The best way to do it, don't sell it, gazelle it. I'm looking here. Oh, look, they put in all the people we're going to talk to. Ooh, coming up a lot. Oh, boy, oh, boy. We're going to get some great guests in here in just a bit. They've been putting in names into the lower thirds. Oh, this is exciting. Some great people coming up with Mary Jo Foley and Paul Thurrott in just a little bit. But let's talk about Gazelle and Newegg.com. You know Gazelle as the world leader in electronics trade-in and recycling. They help you sell or recycle your used gadgets, smartphones, MP3 players, ebook readers, laptops, cameras, gaming consoles, GPS devices, video games. And yeah, if you're looking at this and saying, boy, I'd love a Windows 8 tablet, maybe I want to get rid of that iPad or that Android tablet. Here's what you do. You go to newegg.com/trade. Yes, because Newegg has joined Gazelle. Newegg, of course, is the site for buying electronics online. I've been using it for years. 84,000 products. Great reviews on there. 1.9+ million customer reviews. High-res photo galleries. And if you go to newegg.com/trade right now, you could trade in the old electronics and get a Newegg gift card to buy some new electronics. I think that's quite nice. So here's what you do. Go to newegg.com/trade. Click that Click Here button and enter in, let's see, I'm going to get rid of that Samsung Galaxy Tab 10.1 because I'm really interested now in replacing that, as many of you probably are, with a brand new Samsung Windows 8 tablet. How much is that worth? I have the 16 gig Wi-Fi version. Let's click that. Is the device fully functional? Yes. Overall condition, perfect. Hardly used. Battery, power, original cables, fine. And you see the price has been plummeting, by the way. You see, I love this graph. It was worth in July $200. Now it's worth 108. Hey, I'll take it. I'll take $100. That's good. I'm happy. Thank you. What happened? Why can't I switch over to that? I want to switch over to. I can't switch cameras, kids. Have I screwed something up? There we go. I think we have two people working on the TriCaster at the same time. That's why that's going on. They're putting in their lower thirds right now. Newegg.com/trade. Get rid of your old stuff. Recycle if it's not worth anything. They do a great job of recycling with green recycling. And then spend that card, that cash at Newegg. Newegg.com/trade. Newegg will give you a gift card for the cash value that Gazelle assigns to your electronics. Right in time for back to school or just getting a new Windows 8 tablet. You can't get a Windows 8 tablet yet, can you?
No, you cannot.
Did they say a ship date?
No, but we can tell you when it is.
You do?
We're going to make one up right here, right
Make it
now.
up. What is it? What is the ship date?
No, so here's what he said. So Stanovsky said, this is the developer preview, which is a pre-beta. Yeah. Then the next thing is going to be a beta, but he didn't give us a
public
date.
beta, you think?
Yeah, I think a public beta.
I mean,
I
this
bet
is-
it's going
this
to
is-
be around CES.
This
don't
is
you?
public. Everybody can go right now to buildwindows.com, and you can download it. I have.
Yeah, you can. But the real beta, I think, he didn't give us a date, but he said there'll be one beta, which we're betting CES or so, early January probably. Then one release candidate. Then that's it. It's out.
Wow.
It's going to RTM and go GA.
That
and
sounds
so,
like early next year, maybe?
I'd say
spring?
mid
Mid.
next year is my bet.
Summer next year.
They're going to make the back-to-school season,
Yeah.
which they did do for Windows 7 or Windows Vista,
Vista.
or Windows XP.
No.
So
Yeah, they'd like to.
that's going to happen this time.
Yeah. Now, Lou in our chat room, Lou, who works for Microsoft, says there is a problem on the download site for Microsoft with some truncated downloads. So if you are downloading it, you want to make sure. Let me get this number right, because Lou's been saying what the number is. That you have a complete 5.197092864 bytes, or 5.2 gigabytes.
Leo, I can
on
say
this.
from memory that's exactly what I got.
It should be, the point being, it should be over 4 gigs. So Lou works for Microsoft, so I presume
That's the full download.
I don't think he's and that's for the 64-bit with developer
with
tools.
the tools.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's actually amazing the download worked as well as it did on Tuesday, because it was actually the same day as Patch Tuesday.
Right.
Yep.
So there was so much stuff being downloaded that day, but it held up for the
It
most
went
part.
fine.
Right?
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm downloading it now. It's coming in pretty speedily. I'm going to get the 32-bit version because I'm running it on emulation on a Mac and a VM, and I don't need all the developer tools. I did download the big 5 gig version, but I mean, that's a lot of stuff. You get the SDK, you get Visual Studio 11 Express, you get Expression Blend 5 developer preview, and 28 Metro style apps, including the Build conference app. I mean, you get a lot
And
of
if you
stuff.
want to know,
Yeah, no kidding.
how much would you pay for those
No
apps?
kidding. I mean, holy cow. So you answered question 1, when's it available? Question 2 is, how close is this, do you think, to what will come out next year?
I still think it's pretty close to what. I mean, I don't think we're going to see any radical changes to what is in the developer preview. I mean, the reason they're giving this to developers is they're saying this is good enough for you to start developing on.
Wow.
It's not representative of the quality,
right?
reliability, and all that stuff. I mean, this thing, at the reviewers workshop we went to, they had, it was actually kind of comical. They had several of these things lined up in a row, and they would go to the first one, do a demo, which would crash, and then they would just seamlessly move to the second one, and someone would start working on the first one, and by the time they got to the 7th one, the first one would be fixed, and they could, cycle through them. And we were thinking, how are they going to ever get to a public, keynote with all these demos? But actually, they did pretty good in the demos. It had a couple of little application glitches, but nothing serious. I mean, it's early on. This is pre-beta quality. I mean, this is not for general consumption, but
Which means
And Leo,
it's
because
foolish to
just as
ask
I know
about.
you want
Go ahead.
to know, you want to know this, though. Windows Server 8 also is available for download in preview. I knew you wanted to know that.
Yay!
So another thing for the developers who want to start working with the code.
Victory!
So you can't just take the client. You also can take the server bits if you want them to. So that's also simultaneously available, and we assume on the same schedule.
That's pretty neat.
if you're a fan of the desktop interface, you might want to look at the server version. Just a thought.
Does the server it doesn't have any of the tile stuff or anything like
Actually, they do have a tile kind of UI in the new Server Manager, which is the interface for managing multiple servers now. That's I think the single big.
Well,
huge
and that's a
conception
sensible
thing.
place to have tiles.
Yeah.
Right.
But because that's a GUI, but you don't have it in the main server interface, I'm sure.
No.
And why should you? So my last question that I said I would be asking, and then let's get to some guests, is performance wise. I have to say it's looking very snappy on that tablet. Normally, and with early release versions like this, there's all sorts of extra instrumentation code and debugging code. So you don't expect it to be top performance, but it feels like is it performing well? I mean,
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty snappy. I was actually surprised. Yeah.
That's very surprising.
Yeah, it's a PC.
It will, and some people are reporting that they're running the beta on 4-year-old PCs, and it's running fine on Core 2 Duos. It's running fine. That's a big difference between Windows Vista, which was a lot slower than XP was.
So there's in the context of the history of Windows, there's something fairly historical happening here, which is that for the first time ever, they have the same system requirements, but interestingly, this thing actually consumes fewer resources than its predecessor.
That's amazing.
So even though they're not going to change the official stats, this thing actually needs less to run. And to drive that point home, he showed Windows 8 running on I think it was a 4-year-old netbook with a single-core Atom processor. 1 gig of RAM or whatever it was, something really awful, lame computer, and showed that on that system it actually consumed fewer resources.
Yep.
That's huge.
Yep.
Because that bucks a trend. Now, Windows 7 was like that. It was better than Vista, but up to that point, the trend really was bigger and bigger.
Right?
Yeah, that's true, too.
Right. Yeah, this is all about, I mean, a lot of this is coming because of the thing that we've talked about on the show before, Minwin, right? They're reducing the actual kernel.
Minwin does not exist. I don't know where you got that.
Yes. Is that one of those banned words?
Did they tell you? There's no
Did you not
Minwin.
get the memo?
I didn't
no
get the
Minwin.
memo. We can't say the word Minwin, but so Minwin is Microsoft's internal project to actually tighten up Windows, right, and to reduce the dependencies and actually make it smaller and more performant. I mean, that's the whole goal of it, and that's what you're seeing with Windows 8 under the covers.
Yeah, it's an ongoing componentization. It enabled them to port to ARM much more easily, and then only take the pieces they needed for ARM, which I think explains the stuff we were talking about earlier.
We had heard a lot of rumors, and I guess you can now confirm or deny those rumors about an app store. There is an app store in there, yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Called Windows Store, right? Yep.
Silverlight?
Yep. Well,
well.
that's a sore topic, Leo, but
How about
Microsoft will say it is that all of your Silverlight skills will come across seamlessly to the new environment.
Thank you. How about IE?
Yes.
Is it IE9 in that, or is it IE10?
10. Yep.
And is IE10 substantially different? Somebody said there's no plug-in architecture.
Well, maybe for the new, metrified version.
IE is plug-in free, is what they're saying.
I think the situation is 64. It's 64-bit native this time, isn't it?
Wow.
I think so. And there's two versions of IE in this, right? So there's the one that's the Metro IE10, and then there's the IE10 that's going to work for the non-Metro applications on the desktop, right? So they're two slightly different versions, and I think the one on the desktop still does support plugins.
Except I need to go look. Someone told me that it's 64-bit only on the 64-bit version, which is interesting because if you have a 64-bit version of Windows today, you still run the 32-bit version of the browser because
Flash won't work. Yeah,
nothing will work.
Yeah.
Which is, by the way, a fine way to secure IE and also to make it run faster. But obviously people need that additional functionality. So I haven't looked at that.
and there is a distinction between Metro IE and Windows IE.
Yes, there is.
Well, same rendering engine on the back end. I mean, they're kind of like frames over the same thing. Yeah. Obviously, the Metro version is tailored to that environment, and the desktop version.
Right. But the version that's in these tablets, the Metro version of IE is version 3 of the developer preview. But the version that's not the Metro version isn't yet the platform 3.
There you go.
Yep.
I just learned something.
Wolfhat is telling me he's watching us, TWiT Live, on the desktop version of IE10 in Windows 8. He did have to install.
Love him.
He had to install a Flash. There's a 64-bit release candidate from Adobe. So he did install that, but that works.
Yep, so you can still. Yep.
So that's really interesting. That's good.
So
news
you mean
for us.
Adobe still has some partners they work with?
Yeah, well, I think by the time this comes out, people won't use the word Flash very often anymore. Mm-hmm. How about Security Essentials? It's rolled into it now and called Defender. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, Defender's been in Windows since Windows Vista. There was kind of a strange thing that happened in 7. They kind of detuned Defender in 7, took out some really nice functionality that allowed you to do things like control what programs ran at startup and so forth. And then, of course, they came out with Security Essentials, which adds the anti-malware piece. So now in Windows 8, they've added anti-malware directly into Defender, so now it's part of Windows for the first time ever. And by the way, I'll go find my original article. I guarantee you it was over 10 years ago where I begged them in print
Please do this.
to add this to the window. It just didn't make sense. If you care about customers, why would it not be part of, So, but they've also added that startup program functionality, although not to Defender. That's in the new task manager.
Yep.
How about Xbox gaming or Xbox apps or?
So we're actually missing that session here right now.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Well, it's jerk. No. So it's
You're the jerk.
No, you're the jerk. So it's not going to run Xbox apps, but converting what's now called Games for Windows Live to Xbox Live on Windows, and they showed off the interface for it, which is going to look just like the new Xbox dashboard, just like the new store, just like the Metro UI. It's going to be a beautiful, fluent tile-based UI. So, maybe that is what will finally make this happen on Windows. It just seems like this has never really taken off.
Yeah. So what they're letting developers do, right, is develop apps, Xbox apps that will run on Windows 8, right? I mean, that's how you're getting that, right?
I think what you're missing in the session, according to Win Rumors, is that Xbox Live Windows 8 gamers will be able to play against Xbox players and Windows Phone 7 players. But I think we knew that already, right?
Already built.
That's
Xbox.
nothing new. Yeah, okay.
That's not new.
All right.
Yeah. As with everything, Win Rumors prints. That's not new. No. Tom's a good friend.
All right. Well, you have a lot of people who are they lined up behind you?
Stacked up. It's like
they
it's
can't
like an
wait.
East Coast airport after a snowstorm.
This is so exciting. So I'll tell you what. Let's take a break. I'm looking at the chat room. Most of the questions I'm asking are coming from the chat room. Thank you, chat room. They're doing a great job. We're going to take a break and let you guys reposition. And when we come back, Paul Thurrott and some amazingly interesting person.
Well, wait a minute. Let's not oversell this, Leo.
Some guy he found. I'd like you to interview the security guard who keeps walking behind you and staring at you. Just out of curiosity, what he thinks of
like
Windows 8. It looks surprisingly like Steven Sanofsky with hair. Anyway, we'll get back to Paul and Mary Jo live from the Build conference in Anaheim. I want to ask them about the Build Blogger Bash. They had their party last night, and I understand they went on the Windows Phone Dev podcast with the Lowdermilks and had a great time too. But before we do that, maybe it'd be a good time to remind you that Netflix is out there waiting for you. I am sure, I can almost guarantee Netflix will run beautifully on that Windows 8 tablet. It certainly does on the iPad, on all Android devices now that have the most recent operating system update. I think if you have 2.2 on an Android device, you're golden. It also is just a great way to watch on many TVs because, of course, TVs have it built in these days. Many Blu-ray players, Xbox 360, of course, PlayStation 3 and Wii 2. And what a great way to watch movies. I go home every night, and somebody told me, let me see if this is true, that now Breaking Bad is on here. Is that true? Oh, I've been paying for Breaking Bad. See, the great thing about Netflix, yes, it is. The great thing about Netflix is, I'm going to add this to my instant queue, $7.99 a month, and you get to watch unlimited amounts. So the first 3 seasons of Breaking Bad are on here. That's fantastic. What a great movie, or great TV show, I should say, and a great way to catch up, too. See, I like watching TV shows all at once. So for $7.99 a month, you can watch all of this every night, watch something differently. Now, I know most of you are already members, so I don't have to tell you. But if you have a friend or a family member who is not, tell them about the TV shows, the documentaries, the classics, and the brand new movies, all available for instant streaming on so many devices. If you've got kids in the family, give them an iPad and let them stream Toy Story 3 or the Veggie Tales. There's so much great stuff. Tell them about it. Netflix.com/twit. Do me a favor. Spread the word. We will thank you for it. We return you now to the Anaheim Convention Center, where Paul Thurrott
And not Mary Jo Foley.
and Mary Jo Foley. Wait a minute. That looks like Long Zheng.
Wow. Is that how you pronounce it?
Zheng.
Zheng. Okay.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure it's Zheng.
Well, it just depends where in China he's from. He's istartedsomething.com.
That's right.
Well, Paul, take it away.
Well, I don't have anything to say, actually, but I was going to... Well, you should
You want me to ask him the questions?
Why are you here? No, I wanted him to explain who he was and what he does, and then talk a bit about. He has a great application that he's worked on that's going to be metrofied, and we should talk about that. So
Yeah, so we do a Twitter client on Windows called MetroTwit. It's all about Metro. It's trying to bring Metro to the desktop and kind of bring it to a Twitter client experience. And so currently it's written on WPF, which is one of the Microsoft kind of platforms that was recommended to desktop developers as the kind of platform to go about it. And so obviously with Windows 8, we want to port it over to the new user experience and take advantage of touch and all those good things So we're going to be kind of doing that for the next couple of months, I guess, trying to bring that experience and make sure that it's because we can't just copy and paste the code. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that we need to do.
Because Microsoft said you could cut and paste the code. Is that not is that not accurate?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of differences between WPF and Silverlight, and even between them, it's kind of hard to kind of port over your code. And so we're going to be kind of skipping 2 stages because it's going to be pretty easy to port over Silverlight applications, but WPF applications need an extra step.
Okay. So, and they're using your MetroTwit show or Metro.
Yeah. So we have another Silverlight client that's kind of like a visualizer that brings up tweets at events, and you can put up a hashtag up there. And so they're using it at the Channel Live broadcast here, where they kind of have the show going on in the front, and people are tweeting about Build, about Channel Live, and it kind of comes up in the background and kind of adds a bit of interactivity to the show.
It's neat. I've been watching it. In fact, you can get it on the web too.
Yeah.
If you want to put it on your system.
Yeah. So, all right. So you're a developer, have a developer background. Obviously, this is a big change. I mean, what's your take from that perspective? Is this good, bad, just different? What?
Well, I mean, even developing with WPF, we ran into a lot of issues with performance because even though it is kind of like a mature platform, it is a platform with problems. And so WinRT, a lot of the stuff they kind of talked about was kind of enticing. You have graphics acceleration on most of the stuff. Oh, actually, on all of the stuff you want to do. And so even that alone, that's enough reason for me to port over any application I have in WPF. In terms of the design, Metro, it gives you a lot of. It's simple, but it gives you a lot of capabilities and flexibility to do, something that you want to do to make sure that it's your brand. The weather application, for example, takes advantage of that really well. It's not just the icon and the temperature. There's a video playing in the background. It's the actual weather patterns, and it looks really good. So different Twitter clients. There's going to be obviously a lot of Twitter clients on it, and so there's going to be a lot of room as well to make sure there's some uniqueness to MetroTwit and any other Twitter client that comes up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I use MetroTwit because I love this UI, so I think it's cool that this is where we're going. So, do you know conceptually? One of the things we were debating earlier, and by we I mean those of us who don't actually know any better, was where WinRT kind of falls in this sequence of things. Right? We have the old style Win32 APIs. We've got .NET, which spawned Silverlight and WPF, and those things have a sort of a functional place in a hierarchy. I mean, where does WinRT fall? How is this? Where does it sit really? I mean, do you have an idea yet?
I don't know exactly where it falls, but I know that it is at least the one thing you can go to. Because before, developing on Windows, you could choose between WPF and Silverlight. And it was always kind of unclear which you should choose, because there are kind of scenarios you want to choose one and the scenarios you want to choose the other. Having one platform makes that really easy. Even though it might not be as good as Silverlight in some areas and might not be as good as WPF in other areas. Yeah. It's the one choice, and you have to live with it. So you make the most of it.
So fair to say it's lower level in some ways, Silverlight and WPF.
I think it's relatively even, as in compared to WPF and Silverlight, but there are more capabilities that are unique to Windows 8 with like geolocation, with sensors that's not as pervasive in Silverlight and WPF. So,
okay. I mean, do you see a version of your app appearing?
It would be a great tablet app, I have to say. It's
going to look great on a tablet, no doubt. Yeah, just a straight, web version. I mean, it's like.
Well, I'm watching. This is the Silverlight-based web version right now.
Yeah, so that application MetroTwit shows a visualizer they use on Channel Live, and that is Silverlight-based. Technically, that could be a HTML5 application, which is actually when I started this application, I wanted to try Silverlight development because I've never done it before, and I was doing
but what you want is something that is going to give you that multi-column view like you have now in your desktop app, and then you flip it. And maybe there's a different way of, maybe you see the one column or two instead of three or however.
Yeah. So some of the controls in the new WinRT platform gives you kind of that capability. And some other things that we are currently doing might not. Say like pop-ups, for example, in Windows 8, they're trying to discourage applications from using pop-ups and using anything that has like a different layer to your application. So we're going to have to try to adapt our application, the user experience of that, to fit with Windows 8. As well, yeah.
Okay. And then the other thing I guess we should talk a little bit about is just this notion that Microsoft is bringing this, what they're calling a Metro style UI. I don't know if we actually even know the name of it, right? I mean, not exactly, to Windows, but it's not it looks similar. Right. It has a lot of the same usage conventions to the version on the phone, but they're not actually the same thing. I mean,
Yeah, there's subtle differences, and I think it's part of the evolution of Metro, because I actually spoke to a Microsoft designer who worked on Windows Phone from the very beginning, and he was saying that how the Windows team approached them for guidance on what Metro was, because I guess, people in Microsoft don't really talk to each other anyway, and so they were looking for guidance on how they should apply Metro to Windows. And now that Windows 8 is out, they're actually going to have a two-way conversation on, what Windows 8 does with Metro that's different to Windows Phone. For example, there's gradients on the tiles. There's a lot more different colors. Like on the Windows Phone 7, your home screen would only have one color, right? It was the accent color. But now the tiles have, all sorts of colors, and I think that's encouraged to make that experience different. And also, there's a lot of widgets and stuff that doesn't exist in Windows Phone 7 as well. And actually, so one thing the guy did mention that was kind of interesting was the select gesture, the one you were trying to do where you kind of slide it down.
The one that didn't work.
Yeah. I tried.
That sort of stuff, could possibly work in Windows Phone as well. So for developers and designers who are going to do both a Windows 8 application and Windows Phone 7 application, I think they should be aware of those differences, because you might get in the mindset Metro is the same thing on all platforms. It's sort of like a language, so you have different accents of a language, and the accent of Windows Phone 8 is slightly different.
It's the hold and drag down thing is interesting on the phone, because that has become a de facto but not a standard way of refreshing a view, right? So
mostly on Apple iOS, because a lot of,
but also Windows Phone. The Rowie Twitter app does that, and that's something I think should become a standard, because in some ways that is sort of what you're doing with a tile on Windows 8. You're changing it in some way, right? So it's it becomes a standard gesture.
Yeah, I guess some of the differences might come into the fact that you're holding the tablet different. You're holding a tablet different to you hold a phone. And in one of the sessions I built here, they were talking about how they were doing research on how people hold tablets, and they actually used finger painting when people held it in two hands.
They hold them like this.
Don't take my tablet, dude.
Sorry.
They were holding in two hands and put paint on their fingers, and you would draw like a circle, an arc on how far your finger could reach comfortably, and that's how they placed their split keyboard layout that would be on the two sides, and also how applications would put most of their icons and buttons close to the edge of the screen. So when you do hold it like that, it's easy to get to.
Right there, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that sort of difference, you have to think about when you're designing an application for a larger screen, when you don't on the phone, when the person is most of the time is holding in one hand and flicking and doing other stuff with the other.
Yeah. I think the design aspect of this is going to be the big change, because we've gone from a world in Windows that's very utilitarian to one that is like this beautiful, lush, gorgeous thing. And I think for a lot of developers, this is a new world,
Yeah, I think it gives them a fresh start. I mean, for a lot of applications that you're kind of getting used to a design that you might have started 10 years ago, and like Photoshop, for example, Photoshop, it's a UI that works and still works, but you're getting to a point where just adding new buttons to the same layout, and it would be cool for them to see how they would approach Photoshop in a new environment from a blank canvas. So
I think for complex applications like that, and for when Microsoft Office would be the other one, what you're going to see is the desktop app where you get the full meal deal, and then a Metro front end where you get quick editing, or you get the simple stuff. Yeah, I think that'd probably be the way to handle it.
That's cool. I love this visualization. It's really neat.
Yeah,
it's cool.
So just from a user perspective, is this exciting, interesting? Is this Microsoft catching up? I mean, what do you think of this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I've used an iPad from the beginning, almost beginning, and I really love that tablet experience, being able to kind of use a computer in places that I wouldn't take my laptop to. And so a device like this, running Windows 8, where I could do some of the stuff that I wouldn't be able to do with an iPad, say, run a desktop application that just to do some quick checking, it would give me an experience that I don't really get to have an opportunity to do on other tablets, because other tablet platforms are all just a mobile experience. There's no desktop. And sure, you don't have to go to the desktop if you don't want to, but it being there is kind of like a nice touch.
Paul, we've lost your sound for some reason. I don't know. Did you mute? There you go.
I muted. Remember the old days I used to use
You
this
used to
all
sit
the
on
time?
that button, yeah.
Yeah, there it is again. So, when the iPad first came out, I spent a lot of time investigating all the remote desktop type experiences you could get, because that's what you're on the thing and you're like, wait, there's something on my PC I need to get. And there's no way to do it from an iPad. So
yeah, and the fact that you could access the same files, like if you have a photo that you copy from some old software that's, I don't know, it's running a scanner or something, and you put it into your file system, it shows up in Metro as well, so you could manipulate it using touch and everything. So there's kind of that hybrid synergy that kind of works out if you want to do anything you want to do with a PC, I guess.
yeah, yep. Best of both worlds. No compromises, however they said it.
So, Paul, I know you have a lot of guests. I don't want to move you along.
I know. Mary
but we
Jo
don't-
Foley's over there screwing around. I don't know what she's doing.
Mary Jo, come back here. Actually, just get that security guard who keeps walking by. We want to know. What do you think of Windows 8,
I think he just wants to be on camera.
He stops every time he walks by and
he does.
and looks and says,
After this is over, he's going to say, so where can I see myself?
are these guys Skyping or what? We should mention that Paul, of course, and I shouldn't have to mention this, is the blogger at the SuperSite for Windows and has written a long and a great bunch of articles on it, including one on how to turn that start menu back on Windows 8. So winsupersite.com. Mary Jo Foley getting in place with our next guest. Mary Jo, who's that sitting next to you there?
So this is a very good friend of mine and a very knowledgeable Windows guy whose name is Sandro Villinger.
Nice to be on the show. Hi, Leo.
Hey, Sandro. Nice to meet you.
Yep.
I like your little Channel 9 squishy.
Yeah, the Channel 9 guy here because they're helping us out and letting us use their space here.
Yeah, let's give him a plug. That's the greatest thing. I love Channel 9.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Sandro, I've known Sandro for years. I think since Vista, perhaps.
Even before that. Yeah.
And he's awesome because he always gets like leaked builds of Windows before they come out, and he kind of takes them apart, looks for stuff. So he's been working with Windows 8 probably, I don't know how long, months.
Probably, yeah. But I haven't seen the immersive UI yet.
Yeah. So he actually was talking to me earlier this week about some of the things when he was using his tablet that he found wasn't working as well as he thought. So I wanted to have him talk about some of that.
So I'm writing for a magazine that's targeted at beginners. So whenever I look at the stuff, I'm trying to put myself in the user perspective and see how it works. And I found a couple of really weird things, and I don't know if that's going to change or not. So like the one major thing I've been encountering is multitasking. I think multitasking is broken in Windows 8,
Really?
to be honest. Yeah, I do. In Windows 7, they try to make it more transparent, right? They try to group several windows under one icon, so you can see what's going on. You had transparency. In Windows 8, when you have take a look at that. When you have, I'm not sure if you can actually see that. Mm-hmm.
Get
guys see
closer,
that?
closer in. Go ahead. Just keep going.
Okay.
And then you have to tilt it. You have to tilt it a little bit so it doesn't glare. No. Just tilt it back, angle it back a little bit. We have a very primitive system. See, now I can see that pretty well. Yeah.
There we go. Looks great. So I think I'm running like 8 or 9 apps at the same time. Okay. How do I switch between apps? So you swipe from the left, you swipe from the left, you swipe from the left. It takes a lot of time to get to the app that you actually want to use right now, right?
Right.
In Windows
I hate to
7,
say this, but it makes you long for the card metaphor of WebOS.
Absolutely, Neil. Yes, I agree.
Maybe they
I
should
agree.
buy that.
It takes, yeah.
Maybe.
In Windows 7, it takes a second to go from one app to another. In Windows 8, it takes you like, I don't know, maybe 8, 9, 10 more swipes from the left.
Is there
And I
no iPad-style way to get a task manager up or to see what else is running? No.
There is a task manager, but it's actually really hard to get to.
So it's even worse.
Couldn't you just go back with the start button, and then choose the app again that way? I mean,
Okay.
it's just not a button.
It doesn't work. Hang on. So you go back to the last app, but really, what I want to have like a carousel that allows me to see apps that are currently running and choose the one I want.
That's what WebOS did so nicely.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think, to be honest, what do you think? Are they going to change that? Is it going to stay that way?
I don't know. Paul and I were talking about that earlier. How much opportunity is there still for change at this point? Because even though it is in a developer preview, it's pretty set the way things are. I mean, I think there's a somewhat of a chance that they could change it, but I'm not expecting any big changes to Windows 8. Are you? I mean, I think it's kind of done.
Didn't Steven Sinofsky say, we're not going to take input, this is it? Basically, if you don't like the UI, shove it. Didn't he kind of say that?
Kind of. He did kind of say that in one of his blog posts, right? He said, this is what we're doing, and this is the way it is. And we have a lot of telemetry data as to why we did this. And that's it, guys. Sorry. If you don't like it, this is why we did it, and here it is.
Although you have to ask, why do a beta, even a very, very early beta like this, if you're not willing to take some input as to UI elements?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a slight chance it could still be changed. But the reason they did this early developer preview isn't so much to get feedback. It's more to let developers start to work on apps.
Yeah.
But what would happen if Microsoft gets real bad feedback with that?
Yeah. Then I think then I do think there's a chance that something could change. Like if everybody started bombarding the forum saying multitasking is broken.
Historically, Microsoft's paid attention to feedback. I mean, they've been very much a user-driven company, so it would shock me if there were universal revulsion for this, that they didn't respond, or perhaps offer an app or some way of doing this. A task manager, an Alt-Tab. What happens when you do Alt-Tab? Do you see things that are running?
Yeah, you could actually Alt-Tab, and that works. That still works, but it wouldn't work on a tablet,
But not on a tablet, right?
Yeah.
No.
Right.
So yeah, I'm not sure what to think of it. The next thing I'm having big issues with is the classic desktop. I mean, imagine you're like an IT pro. You just want to focus on your work and you want to stay in the classic desktop, right?
Right.
The start menu is gone. They essentially killed off the start menu. When you push the start button, it goes back to the start screen.
So the classic menu doesn't bring a classic menu back. It doesn't bring a start menu back.
No. It is literally gone. They killed it off. I try to go to properties of the taskbar, see if there's any way to re-enable it to go back to the way it was, and there's no way to do that.
Now, I think Paul wrote some. I'm gonna have to look at his Win SuperSite because I think he wrote an article about bringing the start button back, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think he was talking earlier too about, he thinks with some of the policy management settings that's going to be available more to the enterprises that they'll be able to say, okay, we want the desktop menu to be the default menu, right?
Oh, Then, here's his article. It says, enable the old start menu in Windows 8 at your peril. I missed the at your peril. Maybe not something you want to try.
Don't try this at home.
At your peril. He says, seriously, don't do it. Not now. If you actually took the time to download the new Windows 8 and disable it, the entire point of the release, you just don't get it. So he says, give it a chance.
Give it. Yeah, and we will. And to be honest, I will give it a chance, and everyone should give it a chance. I mean, now we've been working with Windows 8 for 3 days now,
right?
And there's a lot of backlash and early praise, early backlash. So I don't know. Let's wait a couple of weeks and see how this thing works out. But still, there's so many issues with the UI. I really hope they do change it a little bit, make it more transparent. A basic issue is that I'm having is transparency. You really don't know what is going on, and there's no clear way to switch between apps. Like another example is, how do you actually start apps that are not on the start screen? You have to go to a search. You have to do a search, and there an app list shows up. But it's not really intuitive, right?
No.
A search.
Right.
That shows a list that with apps. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was talking earlier on the show about, if you're somebody who's used to the iPad, you're always going to be trying to do it like you did it with the iPad, right?
Right.
And that's going to be a large number of people who they're trying to win over with Windows 8. I mean, it's not just people who are used to Windows. It's also people who are used to the iPad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's going to be a big training and learning curve with Windows 8, especially for businesses, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking that. I'm like, wow, this is going to be awesome for Microsoft partners who are in the training business because they'll be able to, have a gold mine in retraining people. But it's when people first see this, it's going to be really jarring to them, right?
Yeah, they're going to be shocked, and I think they will re-enable the policy that's it shuts down the start screen. I bet many of them will do that.
Right. Yep.
Well, we appreciate your coming by, Sandro. Is Computer Build a German language computer magazine?
It is. You know the Bild magazine in Germany?
Yeah, this is the computer version of that?
It's like their computer version of that,
Oh,
yeah.
that's great. So do you live and work in Germany?
I do.
How fun.
I just came here for the review server workshop in Seattle, and for Bild.
It's funny
I'm
because
heading home on Sunday.
when we saw Build, we said we actually made that comment. Gee, isn't that a German magazine?
It is.
It means image in German.
Image, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. So if people want to, if you speak German and you want to know more, computerbuild.de, and you can read
There you go.
Sandro's writing. Thank you, Sandro.
There you go. That's actually the article. One last question I have for you. What is your personal killer feature in Windows 8? Is there like this one major thing you think we need to have that?
Yep.
I love
For me, I really want to see Windows 8 on an ARM tablet because I've said this often on my blog and on the show too. I have an iPad, and I'd be willing to get rid of my iPad if I could. I see Paul in the background doing some weird thing.
He's probably bringing his next guest in. Just keep talking. Ignore Paul.
I was going to say.
I think Paul's with Rafael, and he's going to bring Rafael.
Just throw me out if you don't want to have me on.
Well, we have so many people, Sandra, that we are going to move pretty quickly. But go ahead, finish your thoughts, Mary Jo.
I was going to say, I want to see this on ARM because to me, unlike Microsoft, I don't consider the tablet to be a PC, and I use my my iPad very differently than I use a PC. So for me, the killer feature is Windows 8 on ARM, and if it really is like an iPad.
All right.
Yep.
That we will find out. Thank you, Sandro.
All right.
Computerbuild.de. We're going to now make another shift. I'll mute the mics. Paul Thurrott will scooch in. Again, thanks to Channel 9, Microsoft's Channel 9, which is a great video channel. They do more programming than we do on the TWiT network, and it's all about developing and what's going on at Microsoft. It's a really great resource. But we welcome back to the table Paul Thurrott with a familiar-looking face.
Yes. Too familiar.
Hello.
Too familiar, damn it. But this is the guy, isn't it?
Oh, look what we got.
Yeah, we got a little Plan 9 man. Oh, Channel 9 man. I always think of Channel 9 I confuse it with Plan 9 from outer space. Just different.
And it's not that different. Actually, if we could have switched times today, we could have used their little mini portable studio.
Oh, that would have been nice. They have a better production facility than we do at the TWiT Breakhouse. They have a really nice.
It looks pretty good.
Yeah. So Rafael Rivera needs no introduction.
So we won't do one.
Within Windows.com, and he's of course helped Paul with a couple of his most recent books. And,
Most.
And with all of them, in fact. In fact, he writes them. Paul just puts his name on them.
The man behind the man.
But
I just finally put my name on the books.
Rafael is the guy who kind of is always finding stuff out deep within Windows. He's kind of a good guy Windows hacker.
Yep.
So what do you think? Yeah. Well, let me see the shirt. What is it?
It's just a binary tree. You see the little.
That's a binary tree.
I understand. From Delphi, but. Yeah.
Oh. So, what do you have, Rafael? Have you started to dig under the surface of this release of Windows? I presume you've seen other releases of Windows 8 before.
Right. So there were the leak bits,
Right.
but
This
not
is the
all
real one.
activated. So yeah, they gave us a tablet to play with some of the features. I didn't get enough time to dig into it. I had to return it. So I did download all the bits. I'm ready to go. So
What do you expect?
expect to unlock, or
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think's in there? Do you have a process where you go?
Throw down the gauntlet.
Yeah.
well, so immediately right off the bat, the first thing was, oh,
there's this green background I can't change. So I'm attacking that. And
How do I change that? Yeah.
But
Which instituted a running joke for all of one day where every 10 minutes I'd be like, is the green gone yet?
and
Did you get rid of the green?
And you didn't see this, Paul, but while we were talking with Mary Jo was talking with Sandro, I mentioned that you wrote the article on Win SuperSite saying how to bring back the start menu at your own peril.
Well, because that screws up everything. Right? So he'll figure out a way.
He'll find a way.
Just to do that bit of it. I mean, that's going to be one of the very first things that happens, I would imagine.
Yep. Yeah, the bit he's talking about, that actually disables all the features, or most of them, that were added to Windows 8.
So it basically takes Metro away.
It's called Windows 7.
Hey, let me ask you that, and I don't know if you can tell that yet, but how much of this code is Windows 7 code with a GUI on top?
So they at the reviewers workshop they went to great lengths to explain how this thing was not a layer on a layer. It's not layers. It's just one thing. And then they showed a slide that had like 8 layers on it. That was like kind of architecturally what it was.
Yeah.
And it's pay no attention to the previous comment about layers because here's the layers.
But of course it's layers. You can't write 50 million lines of code as one monolithic blob.
Right.
Are DLLs still in here? Are we still kind of the basic Windows architecture? Would we have a registry? All of those things that we've grown up with?
Well, for the old stuff, I mean, what about the new stuff? One thing I noticed was if you go into the app data folder, which is hidden in Windows, there were a bunch of entries in there for the Metro apps. So they're still using the user's folder and the same folder structure to hold that stuff.
And they're EXEs? Are they EXEs?
No. This was just for storing data related to the apps. I didn't find I didn't look or.
They probably aren't EXEs because they're web apps. So.
That's a good question. What are those? Do we know?
They're probably MHTs or something like that.
But it depends what language you choose, right? So if you use HTML and JavaScript, it's all contained within an AppX package. If it's a
AppX,
if it's a Windows runtime,
which he also originally revealed to the world.
Right.
Yep. If it's a Windows runtime written application, it'll be DLLs, executables, various assemblies, and they're all packaged up. So,
how about .NET? Is .NET still there?
.NET is still alive, yes.
And how would we explain the relationship between .NET and WinRT in 5 words or less?
So on Facebook, you would click, "It's complicated."
Nice.
That's a term this generation understands.
That was 5 words or less.
Yeah, it's complicated. Yep. .NET is still there. Would you still be writing in .NET?
Oh yeah, absolutely. All your languages are still there as well, C#, VB, and they're stronger than ever in Windows 8.
Which makes me guess that not only is the DLL preserved, but also the registry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But the question is whether the registry is there for new stuff, right?
Is it legacy only, or is it something...
I bet it is legacy only, but we don't know. I haven't looked at it. I guess you haven't either, so we'll find that out. I mean, this is the type of stuff people are going to look at now. Right. Now that we have it, this information will kind of roll out over time. I'm curious about that kind of stuff. There are questions about WinRT that I don't think we can answer yet, but for example, the .NET stuff, which is this managed code environment, I don't know that it's fair to say it runs on top of Win32, but you can from there call Win32 APIs, and the reason you can do that is because, especially in the early days, .NET just wasn't very full-featured, right, from an API perspective. So the relationship question between WinRT and Win32 and .NET is one of those questions. I mean, can you call .NET APIs? Can you call from that namespace?
Right. So actually, I went to a session on this, and one of the amazing things was that all the .NET APIs that everyone's used to were mapped to equivalent functions and properties and all that in Windows runtime. It's kind of hard to grasp that they made this transition so seamless, but
so it's not like MFC where they're wrapping them; they recreated them essentially.
Right.
And is it the same object names and same access?
Yep.
Okay, so that's great.
And they've ported all of it over except 2 things, and it's simply dealing with streams and some other obscure topic. But they kept all that compatibility, which is shocking, really.
I think this goes to Leo asked earlier about whether Silverlight was still alive, and the question was, or the answer was sort of, well, yeah, it is, but the official Microsoft response is your skills developed using Silverlight carry forward, and this is one of the ways they carry forward, because if you've been writing in any .NET language for any .NET framework, you're used to these objects and methods and all the various things.
Although, as Long Zheng was saying, you know, the WPF stuff, you have to rethink.
Yeah, I think he was saying that if you're a WPF application writer, you're gonna have to rewrite for this.
Yeah, a little bit.
Not entirely though.
No.
Oh, good.
Right. And if you're a Silverlight developer, this importing it seems like would be possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think they demoed that porting Silverlight was actually easier than the WPF stuff.
I gotta call BS on that though. Well, throw some if-defs in there; it'll be fine.
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, come on, really? I don't think that's how it's gonna work.
It was a basic app, so that's true.
And I think if you're following good programming principle and you've separated your logic and your data and all that, you're gonna rewrite the UI. Your backend logic's still gonna work, and it won't be that bad.
Yep.
Anything
What
else to say?
Just stepping away from programming, I mean, do you?
Yes, actually, I wanted to touch this thing.
That's my. Don't touch.
So how come you didn't get one, Rafael? What happened? Why did they take theirs back? I don't understand. What's going on? Tell us.
So all of us will be giving them back, including Paul.
Oh, I get it.
Today.
I get it. No.
He says no, but they will.
No,
I will report him if he doesn't turn it in.
Fair
is fair.
I'm not giving mine back.
So one of the, I mean, this seems like a small feature, but one of the cool things here is that this thing, like you saw in Sanofsky's blog post, this thing boots up almost instantly, which is crazy. So I have it off. There's no light.
Yeah, that's
How
one
do
of
we
the
know
things
you have
that
it up?
that's
How
one
do
of
we
the things the chat room.
Blue light.
Open it up
Because
and take
there's
out
no
the
blue
battery, Rafael. Come on.
And then let's see here. So I'm going to hit the
That's
power
one of the
button.
things the chat room was saying is that it boots up crazy fast.
It's like 5 seconds
Whoa.
fast.
That's full boot. This
Whoa.
This is not sleep.
It really does boot up in 5 seconds.
It's so fast that I noticed in the some of the more technical guys out there, the boot INI or the boot configuration, they turn off the display of the logo because that just slows boot.
Right.
They'd rather just boot straight to Windows.
Right. They used to put it up just to give you something to look at while
They were booting. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. So just to clarify, the press has to give those back, but developers will get to keep those.
Right.
The press.
I already. I'm not.
Developers and Paul Thurrott get to keep it.
Right.
Nick Doss is asking the chat room about the file system. It's still the same old NTF file system, right? Nothing new in there, is there?
No. I mean,
There were some new NTFS additions in Windows Server. I'm not sure if they were carried over into client. Stuff like fixing NTFS corruption while you're live, no reboot needed. It seems like a technology.
That's probably that would be in there.
Probably in there, right? Yeah.
The way, if you ever use check this, sometimes you'll turn on your computer and it will say we found a problem on the file system. Click within whatever number of seconds and we'll fix it. And it will sit there and if you have a big disk, it could take a while. Yeah. So it doesn't do that anymore. Now it will fix those things on the fly. And if you ever do run into that screen, it will just fix the part that's broken and you'll be right up and running. It doesn't go through the whole disk.
That strikes me as part of the maturity of the operating system all around. We're moving away from the geek origins, the geek roots of Windows, the DOS roots of Microsoft to something that is much more like an iPad. The iPad, you neither care nor ask about the file system. And if you ever saw a check disk on an iPad, you'd run screaming.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
For some people, though, it's the comforting effect of a warm cup of soup on a winter's day, Leo.
Hey, a lot of our viewers still run SpinRite, so we're a different group of people.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're a different group of people.
Well, by the way, I think that's the big conceptual issue here. I'm all day long today and for quite a while, I'll be getting email from people and people will comment on my blog and they'll say, "Oh, I can't, I don't want to run full screen apps. I don't want to do this. This, they think they know what everyone wants and blah blah blah. And unfortunately, I think for that small core group of power users, they need to understand that the wider world does want that stuff. Sorry, And I think you could look at any market that matured where, whether it was the people who had to hand crank a car and had to know how to work to make it work, that has to eventually give way. There'll always be people who are overly technical and need to micromanage things, but I think for the wide group of just general users, this kind of thing makes a lot more sense. So,
yeah, definitely.
At least with this system, you have the ability to hit a button and you're back at some really complex developer environment in this case, but some kind of you get the full meal deal. On the iPad, OS 10 is sort of underneath, but you can't go to the OS 10 desktop and run Xcode and develop iPad.
You need a
apps on an
computer.
Right, and that's kind of an interesting distinction here.
Yep.
Price points, do we have any idea?
No, but the way I've described this is, if you look at how Apple sells products, from $500 starting with an iPad up to a couple of grand or more for a Mac, that Microsoft's partners, the hardware partners, will both be less and more expensive than that. It will span just the wider range, and I think that's how the PC market works. That there will be low-cost ARM tablets that are iPad-style tablets only, of varying sizes, right, from 7 inches up to whatever, that will undercut an iPad. And then there'll be full-fledged, big computers. This system obviously will come on desktops and laptops and whatever.
So I actually have a question for you, Paul. Do you think we'll see tablets with the traditional desktop turned off to closely mimic an offering, from Apple?
No, I think that Microsoft is going to build in licensing for their. You mean full, like actual PC versions, right?
Right, yeah. Could we possibly see the Samsung tablet without the traditional desktop?
No, it would have to be an ARM chip. I think that's the point of the ARM. I think the ARM is going to give them, thinner and lighter form factors, better battery life in some cases, although I think that's going to be a mix. No fans, That's going to be the
It's a shame you have to have a fan in that thing.
In this thing, it's a PC.
It's a computer.
It is funny because of course you set the thing up, and I'm in the hotel room, and there's no sound in the hotel room except for, and I'm typing on the computer that I'm using, my ThinkPad, is not making any sound, and this thing's sitting here doing nothing. You can hear kind of, it's like really. But that,
and then it still heats up tremendously. So.
And there's no point in talking about battery life on this thing because I noticed it's plugged in.
No, it's not great, and what we've seen so far is in the 3 to 4 hour range. I think I don't know.
Yeah,
but it's not a tablet. If there's going to be a tablet, it will be based on ARM and it'll be a different beast.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, by the way, you got to remember too that there's something else going on in the world of hardware right now that we're not seeing reflected in this machine, and that's that Intel is working on the first of what it plans to be 3 generations of Ultrabook chipsets designed specifically for these very light and thin machines that will all occur in the next 18 months. And then by the time Windows 8 ships, we'll at least be on the 2nd generation of that, if not the 3rd. And it's not going to be this thing that we sell a year from now. It's going to be a much more efficient system. And maybe we will see Intel versions that don't have the, don't have that stuff. Have the fan and,
Yep.
Every time Mary Jo Foley goes away, she stops paying attention.
Well,
so she's over there, she's talking to people.
She's at the open bar. I'll tell you what, let's take a break. We're going to do an Audible ad, and when we come back, I'm looking at your list. You've got a lot of great people still to come. It looks like Tom Warren, Stephen Chapman, Travis Lowdermilk from the Windows Phone 7 dev
Looks
cast.
like Travis is next. Be careful around this guy.
All right, and we don't, but I got to tell you, Paul, we only have, I'll give you another half hour.
I know we're gonna have to we're gonna tighten it up, I guess.
But I'm don't tighten it up. I'm actually enjoying every second of it.
We have to keep Paul quiet. So.
But we have other shows at some point, and I feel, and I want to just say this: I feel guilty because we did not cover the keynote. Usually we cover keynotes of this magnitude, and it was just an oversight on my part. But we did know that you and Mary Jo were going to be at the Build conference, and we would have this special 2-hour show. So
something about it. So
yeah. Hey, how was the Build? How was the party? How was the Build Blogger Bash?
Oh, it was awesome, actually. It was great. We packed the place. I think it was the best Wednesday night they ever had. In fact, the Lowdermilks are largely responsible for that. You guys should talk about that stuff. They'll talk about that next.
All right, we'll bring the Lowdermilks on in just a moment. We are at Anaheim at the Build Conference, Microsoft's new combined WinHEC, PDC, and Mix conference, and of course, everything you ever wanted to know right now about Windows 8, and a surprisingly large amount. One of the things that Paul had said is that Steven Sinofsky, who was originally the guy behind Office, is a can-do kind of guy who doesn't really deal in rumors or innuendo. When he speaks, listen, because what he says is the way it's going to be. And that's kind of what we're seeing here at Build with Windows 8. So more to come from the Build conference in just a little bit, but I think it would be a good time right now to talk about Audible.com. Now, I know if Paul were here, he would be waxing poetic about Audible. Paul and I are huge Audible fans. We've been Audible members for a long time. I've been a member since 2000. That means I have 500 Audible books in my library. And you know what's great about those? You can always go back and read them again. Your library is always available to you. In fact, there's a great Audible app, Android, iPhone, and I think Windows Phone 7 soon, if not already, that lets you go through your library and listen to anything, which is fantastic. I see Jane Lynch has a new memoir. Now, you know I love Jane Lynch. Sue Sylvester from Glee, but she's been in so many great movies. She's one of the great comedians. You may remember her from Best in Show, The 40-Year-Old Virgin. She is just one of my favorite people. She's got a memoir written, let's see, by Jane Lynch, but narrated by Jane Lynch and Carol Burnett. Carol Burnett wrote the foreword. Now that I like. Happy Accidents, a memoir. You could get this for free. If you're not a Jane Lynch fan, well, don't worry, because there are 75,000 titles out there. Books for kids. Oh, Jim Dale's got a new book. Now, I'm a big Jim Dale fan. He's the guy who does the Harry Potter. I got to listen to this a little bit. He does the Harry Potter books for Audible.
Yourself are debating departing when it happens. First,
is this for grown-ups
there is
or
a popping
kids?
sound. It is barely audible over the wind and conversation.
Sounds really
A
good. It's
soft
called The Night
noise like a
Circus
kettle
by
about
Aaron
to boil for
Morgenstern.
tea. Then
See, this
comes
is the problem. You go to audible.com and you find all the books you want to listen to. They play back on all your devices, including the Zune and, of course, your Kindle. And they're great. A great way to spend time in your commute, on your flights, if you're traveling, at the gym every day. I listen. Audible.com. Now, here's how you get a free book. You go to audible.com/windows, audible.com/windows, and sign up for the gold account. That's a book a month, and your first month is free. Your first book is free, and you can cancel at any time, but you get to keep the book forever. Here's another one that Audible's recommending called The Art of Fielding. I wanted to get this one. This is a novel by Chad Harbach. You see, it's like the best bookstore in the world, and you just go through it, and you just go, oh, man, Grand Pursuit, the story of an economic genius. Sylvia Nasser writes great books. She wrote A Beautiful Mind. This is the story of who is this about? Oh my goodness, the story of economic. This is about everyone, from Keynes to Schumpeter. Wow, Paul Samuelson, Milton Friedman. This is the story of economics. Now, see, this is a great. I got to put this on my wish list. Audible.com/windows. Good luck finding a book. They're all great. We thank them for their support. Hello, Mary Jo Foley.
Hello, Leo.
We're back at the Build Conference, Anaheim. Mary Jo has, looks like a Lowdermilk.
It is. This is Travis Lowdermilk,
Hey,
who's
Travis.
the co-host of the Windows Phone Dev Podcast.
Awesome. I am amongst royalty today. I am super excited.
Well, I was just going to say how much I enjoy the Windows Phone Dev Podcast. You do a great job, and I can't wait to
thank
hear
you.
the episode you recorded yesterday from Build Blogger Bash.
That's right. We had a really great time at the Bash. We had all the great Microsoft bloggers like Paul and Mary Jo here. And it was really great fun. There's a lot of folks that are excited, obviously, with all the developments this week. And my brother and I, Ryan, he's clearly the brains behind the operation. But we had a great time. It's a lot of fun.
Now, you guys, of course, focus on Windows Phone 7.
Yeah.
You must be pleased, though, to at least see the Metro interface.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. We obviously, our focus is Windows Phone Dev Podcast, but we're more than just developers. We're also, enthusiasts, so our show is great for enthusiasts, too. And we focus a lot on the Metro language and what that all means. And you can't help this week but chuckle a little bit. All the Windows Phone developers we've been talking to, we kind of laugh a little bit because we've been using this UI for almost a year now. And so it's funny and really exciting to see folks react so mostly positive to the way Windows is going to change for them. And that opens up, obviously, folks to take a second look at the phone and see what's going on there. So that's always exciting from a Windows Phone developer standpoint.
Yeah, and it's a big theme here at the show this week, and there's a number of sessions on what can you do if you're already a Windows Phone developer in terms of getting your existing apps running on Windows 8 or building brand new apps for Windows 8. And it's interesting because there are a lot of things that are common, and a lot of the skills are common. So I was hoping Travis would say a little bit about that. You know, how hard or easy do we think it's going to be for those people to make the jump? And, well, I mean, what do you think?
I think it's going to be very easy. We, as developers, we know XAML. Obviously, we know .NET. I don't think that this new Windows runtime that they're introducing, they call it WinRT, I don't think that's going to be a great leap to have to learn that or transition to that. We had Brandon Watson, who you've had on the show. He came by. He's the director of the developer experience, and he's a great evangelist. He came on the show at the Blogger Bash, and he made a great point. He said, listen, you can start building Windows Phone apps right now.
You mean Windows 8 apps right now?
Well, you could build Windows 8, but if you're not ready to do that, you could build Windows Phone
I see,
app.
and get started.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you can get started because, you know, it's very, very, very similar. You can get introduced to this Metro language. You can start looking at what your app is going to look like, how it's going to feel on the phone. And I think the transition is going to be very, very easy. Now, they haven't been very clear as to whether or not the Windows Phone apps will run on the tablet. I did notice something interesting when Sinofsky showed the store. There were Windows Phone apps in the store, which was kind of interesting, and a lot of folks pointed that out. Now, whether or not you could download them from the store and run them on the tablet, I haven't found anybody that's tried that or if that works. But I think the game plan here clearly is that Microsoft, you know, they've been touting the 3 strings in a cloud for a long time now. It doesn't behoove them to have developers that have already embraced Windows Phone to have to now transition to something entirely different. So I've got to imagine that the game plan is to make sure that these apps transition very nicely.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I was hearing from some people saying, you know, I don't think it's going to just be you take your Windows Phone app and it automatically works. No one thinks that. I mean, because of the screen size and other reasons too. But they're saying you can preserve a lot of the code, and it shouldn't be really difficult, at least in theory, right, to take a Windows Phone app that you've already developed in Silverlight and get it to, or XNA, and get it to run on the tablet. But here's one thing we don't know, right?
Yeah,
is XNA.
I was going to say, yeah. Well, pump the brakes on XNA because we don't really know where XNA fits in Windows, and they haven't been very clear.
XNA is kind of considered a game developing language, right? For Xbox.
Sure.
Yeah.
For Xbox developers, that's correct. And so there's been a lot of trepidation and kind of concern for XNA developers saying, well, you really haven't been talking about that, and how is that all going to fit? So, you know, the theme of the Blogger or the Build conference this week is use what you know and build what you've always imagined. And I think this is something that Microsoft doesn't get a lot of credit for from a developer standpoint, is that they've always worked towards giving developers great tools that allow them to build applications that traverse many of their properties. And they're doing, I think, obviously I'm an enthusiast, a bit of a fanboy, but I think that they're doing a really great job, and they just continually get better. We got some sessions on Visual Studio, which is their developer tools to do all of these great things. And with the embrace of HTML5 and JavaScript, I mean, they're really opening up their tools, their platform to really welcome as many developers as possible. And I think that's a good strategy that you know, other competitors don't necessarily always embrace.
Yep, agreed.
Well, good. That's exciting. Travis, it's great to have you on the show, and thanks to your brother, Ryan. I presume you guys are brothers, not just a coincidence you have the same name.
No. No.
Because that would be a pretty wild coincidence.
We are both big fans of the show. We're big fans of TWiT, and it's absolutely an honor. And we would hope to see you again, possibly.
Well, please do come on again anytime you want. WPDevPodcast.com.
And we're a podcast for developers, but also enthusiasts. So if you're really excited about the phone, we do all of that good stuff. So check us out.
And I can tell you right now, Travis, that's exactly why we didn't do a Windows Phone podcast, because we knew you guys had it under control.
Hey, anytime you want to have us do it on TWiT, we'll be more than happy.
We could talk. That's a good idea, actually. That's a great idea.
Hey,
thanks, Travis.
Thank you. So I think we have one more guest, Leo.
Great. If you would, I'll turn off your mics so that we don't get a lot of rattling. And if you would bring Paul over with our final guest. We are live from Anaheim, California. The Build. I got to hear what Paul's saying. You know he's having the Build conference in Anaheim, where we are seeing the official release of Windows 8 to developers. And just to recap, looks like Mary Jo and Paul both agree it's about middle of next year, maybe the summer of 2012, we'll see the release. There will be a public beta not so long from now before the release.
Talking, it's going to be a little disconcerting. Sorry.
Paul, who do you have now?
Stephen Chapman.
All right. Hello.
How's it going?
It's great. Welcome, Stephen. Good to have you.
Good to be here.
So your expertise is SEO?
Yeah, what's your problem?
Yeah, what are you doing there?
Yeah, I started off getting into Microsoft and then decided to get into SEO and started writing for ZDNet, doing the SEO thing, and I still do the Microsoft thing as much as I can. So, yeah.
Yeah, Steve. Actually, you've had a lot of good blockbuster releases of your own, right? Like new, breaking news and whatnot. And
yeah, I try. I like scrounging around, doing sort of the dumpster diving of the internet and finding confidential information in people's resumes and documents. And yeah,
it's weird what people don't lock down.
It really is.
He had nothing to do with the site last night, though. Nothing.
Yeah.
So, what did you? What's your big takeaway from the show? I mean, obviously it's a big deal, but what was where are you looking at?
Primarily, I'm the most interested at the moment in the SkyDrive integration. It seems like there's a pretty aggressive sharing kind of mechanism and the ability to have people easily share. They expressed photos, but the mention of files, just because of how much I discover through Google searching, and I'm curious to see what their implementations are going to be for helping people not share things that they shouldn't be. Yeah. Yeah. So
what did they show off? I know there's we don't actually know how deep it goes, but there is you can log on to a Windows 8 PC with your Windows Live ID, which is something I've always wanted to see them do, which is neat. But there's some level of SkyDrive integration. When we were at Microsoft last week, we saw that backup, although it's not in this build, will be integrated with SkyDrive. And we don't know if that means you'll be able to back up everything to SkyDrive or just your profile, or who knows? We don't know. But and they showed in the demo, although I've not looked. Did you look to see if this was there in the build we have? If you go to the website, there was a devices section that had your computers in there. So what, do you know any more about what's there, or what do we get?
I don't yet. I've tried to install the build on my laptop, but I've had some issues with that. So I'm kind of waiting until after the conference. But yeah, that's exactly something I've been curious about as well, to see just how much they're planning on backing up. I like the roaming profile idea, but it'll be interesting to see just how simple it is or difficult to configure to store whatever they decide they want to put up in the cloud. Yeah,
I mean, the ideal situation would be you walk up to a random window, say computer, log on with your Windows Live ID. It pulls down all of your settings and probably your Metro apps. I would have to think those are pretty small.
Yeah.
And you could have your own environment on someone else's computer.
Yeah, totally.
Hopefully, that would be the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it seems pretty fascinating to me, this idea. They were in one of the sessions yesterday touting about how this has never been done before, this roaming profile and, ability to share files and interact with them, so seamlessly amongst devices and whatnot. So I'm just curious to see how easy and how much, will your files be available up in the cloud, and, how will that become available on someone else's computer? How quickly, I
think a lot of this stuff is not available to us yet, so it's hard to tell where it's going.
Exactly.
But there's also a SkyDrive API, which I think has existed previously, but I think it was updated for this. I would imagine it's been updated for these capabilities, so maybe that would be a place to look.
Yeah, I believe there's a session here about the SkyDrive API specifically that they're going to be covering. And since all the sessions are going to be downloadable, that'll probably be a good one to check out.
Yeah, the next couple of weeks are going to be a giant data dump, because they're going to make everything available that's happening here. Is all the videos, all the presentations, you'll be able to download them all, and I will, like a goon, and I'm going to have to go through them. I have to. I got to, and you will too, of course.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what we do. And the next, whatever that is, couple of months is going to be consumed just by looking for little, tidbits. For example, actually, now that I think of it, one of the big questions was about the store and whether Microsoft was going to take a 30% hit like Apple does. And Steven Sinofsky said at the Reviewers Workshop that they would not do that. But it turns out he was talking about classic apps. So if you're going to sell something like Adobe Photoshop through the store, Microsoft won't actually host that, nor will they take a 30% cut. But actually, I think it was Long said, one of the other Microsoft, it was Microsoft documentation, the developer documentation, confirmed that that is their plan, that they'll allow Metro-style apps to be installed on up to 5 computers, and that Microsoft would, in fact, take a 30% cut.
It's very much like Apple.
Yeah, very much like Apple. But the point being that there's what Microsoft says, and they can be kind of coy. But then what we do is we go and in developer documentation sometimes is the greatest place to look, because that stuff's all very clear cut. They don't beat around the bush with developers, and sometimes there's information in there that tells us what's really going on, so that can be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anything else? Any other big picture stuff? I mean,
I'll tell you, I like this idea of Windows running on tablet devices and whatnot, but I guess the biggest part for me is seeing how this is going to, perform on a desktop. I'm not really
sold on it.
Yeah, I'm really not. And I actually I've never been a tablet guy, and just because everyone got their tablets here, I decided to go buy an iPad. And yeah.
Oh, I got a ow!
Oh. Yeah, and it's just messing around with that thing has shown me where the competition is for sure. Yep. And I like the idea of this UI for tablet devices. I'm not sold on it for desktop.
It is, yeah. Well, that's going to be part of the deal. So we're going to take these things home. I don't know what your setup is like at home, but I have a dual monitor thing, and it's interesting how So on a dual monitor, you actually get this Metro UI on one screen and then the desktop on the other. Right. And so you can run these things side by side.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's really interesting, yeah. And if you just want to do the pure desktop, they have a nice new multi-monitor interface that offers you a lot more functionality about where the taskbar is and what buttons are there and so forth. So,
I think
get it home.
You've buried the lead because, as Ben Parr pointed out on Mashable, the most important story: there's a new blue screen of death with a unhappy face.
I have a much better screenshot of that, by the way.
Do you? Oh, is it on SuperSite?
Yeah, I wrote a post where I said, if comedy is tragedy plus time, then Microsoft is basically cutting to the chase.
Microsoft tries to make light of tragedy, and you're right. Your screenshot is, I think they just took yours. I don't know. No, actually, they didn't, because theirs says something different. Yeah. Your PC ran into a problem it couldn't handle, and now it needs to restart. I think, though, frankly, that is so much of a better error message. I get so many calls on the radio show from people who try to read me the dump in the blue screen of death, and I have to say, stop. I can't. What? Stop.
Yeah. Oh, is it OX09? Yeah, I know what that is.
I have been tempted to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
But mostly what I say is, by the time the machine figures out it's crashed, whatever it thinks crashed it isn't what crashed it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just best guess, and it's wrong. And actually, this is a good one. It says HAL initialization failed. This is presumably you got this on a boot up. This particular blue screen, because that's right at the beginning there. Anyway. Thank you, Stephen, for stopping by. And
thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
One more guest to go.
One more guest. Bring him in. Bring in the guest.
We'll be right back.
We are live from the Build conference in Anaheim. I'm just really glad we could get this coverage to you. Thanks to Mary Jo Foley and Paul Thurrott, who were there at the conference. Of course, Mary Jo Foley is a blogger for ZDNet. She writes at allaboutmicrosoft.com, Paul Thurrott's site, and there is a lot of information on Windows 8. There is WinSuperSite.com, the super site for Windows. We now take you back to Mary Jo Foley at the Build conference in Anaheim. Who do you have now, Mary Jo?
I have the infamous and famous Tom Warren, who actually got a shout out during Steve Ballmer's keynote. He runs WinRumors. And he's another one of the long-term members of the Microsoft blogging community, who everybody knows. So he's visiting here from London.
How exciting.
Flying back home tonight. So.
Worth the trip, Tom?
Yeah, definitely worth the trip. Yeah, there's a lot to take in, but yeah, it's definitely been worth my time. I think flying out, definitely. Yeah, some good stuff.
What are your impressions?
Well, I like the way that it's like Windows Phone, right? So you got all the different tiles and the different shapes and stuff.
You like that? You think that's positive?
Yeah, I think it's great. So because if you compare it to like the iPad, everything's moving and there's a lot going on the screen. It's just it's a lot more interesting, I think, for the end users.
Any concern though for the business user or the user who wants to just use Excel? I mean, do you feel like that'll get in the way?
Well, you can switch obviously back to the desktop. I don't think businesses are going to like this in, like traders and stuff like that. They're not going to want graphics flying across the screen and stuff. They just want their Bloomberg terminal and access to their files and stuff. So, yeah, I think they're going to have to offer some sort of way to cater for the business needs outside of the Metro, I think. So, because there's still a lot of legacy apps that they have to support there. So, yeah.
Yep. But Tom was just telling me he just was in a session here about the Windows Live apps on Windows 8, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. What's your impression of how that's going to work?
Yeah, so they're building Xbox Live straight into Windows 8, which is something that they've kind of hinted at, but they hadn't really, fully sort of disclosed it all. So they sort of showed it off in the session today. So there's like achievements, profiles, and all the stuff you'd expect, like your avatar, etc. But they did show, they sort of talked about the whole async stuff, which is like, so you could be playing on your Windows Phone versus another Windows Phone user, which is the standard practice now. But you'll be able to play against like a Windows 8 machine, and a Windows 8 user might be able to play against an Xbox user, etc. So all that sort of integration, really. So with the gaming there, so that's pretty good. I think that no other platform really offers that. So. I mean, you've got iOS and the Game Center, but you can't play iOS games on the Mac. So, yeah, so it's pretty impressive stuff there. So,
Yep. Yeah. Anything else you thought was really kind of weird, significant, kind of a red herring or anything that kind of caught you here at the conference?
I think the Windows Live stuff is a bit of a red herring, like what they're doing with it, because they're taking it straight into a Metro app. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go with that, whether they, whether it comes bundled in or whether you have to download from the store. And it's going to be interesting, I think, how they separate those apps. Also, like the media center story. So they haven't really told us about that.
Nope,
so
I know. Yeah.
I'd expect that's going to be an app that you can download. So what are these guys doing?
Well, I think you're going to be completely walled in before the show is over, and I want to keep it going. To be honest with you, I don't. That is I believe the green that Gabe was trying to get rid of the Windows 8 Metro interface, and
yes.
either that or tribbles. Either that or tribbles. I'm not sure.
Yes. But to Tom's point, the whole Windows Live thing, to me, that felt very, very early. So that's like all the add-on services, right? So Hotmail, Messenger, what else? SkyDrive, right? Yeah. So
and all the photo stuff.
All the photo stuff. Yeah. That's like not even in the build that the developers got at all. And so I get the feeling that's going to lag by a lot from when they introduced Windows 8.
Well, they did.
Is that Thurrott just leaping into that?
Yeah, he's planking, I think.
Oh, the horror. Yeah. There's Gabe.
Those live stuff is going to definitely be interesting, though.
Tom, I just want to apologize. The lack of respect being shown to you right now by the...
I know. I'm getting trolled. Real life trolling right here.
Well, I hope you don't go back to the UK and say, well, I don't know about those Americans. They just have no class whatsoever. Actually, I know what you really want to do is jump up and jump into those beanbags. So we're gonna let you do that. Why don't you bring Paul back if you can get him out of the beanbag, Mary Jo, and we can wrap this thing up. Thank you.
Thanks,
Great to have you, Tom. Appreciate it. WinRumors.com, and we'll get Paul Thurrott back there. What is that, Mary Jo? What is going on over there?
I don't really know what that was going on there. I think we should ask this man here.
Do you think Paul had something to do with it?
Perhaps he had something to do with it. I don't know.
It would never have anything to do with shenanigans.
He's the king of shenanigans. Now they're taking him away. Wait a minute.
Hilarious?
Now they're taking him away.
There's like 5 security guards over there, and they're just laughing.
Well, so much for security. So let's wrap this up because by the way, it's been a great 2 hours at Build where we've I think really got a good summary of what's going on. Of course, if you want to know more, you can go to buildwindows.com and download a copy for yourself. Microsoft's still offering downloads. Do we have any idea of how many? The last I heard was like after the first night, 500,000.
500,000. 500,000 after the first night.
After the first night, so it's probably 2 or 3 times more than that.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Bad. Mm.
Hey, people are excited about it. I think the coolest thing about the show is, for the first time in a long time, from a Microsoft world perspective, not just users, but developers are actually excited. And this is the thing I've complained about in the past. You know, Microsoft makes these platforms, and it's like you hear crickets. And this time, I mean, you could see the thunderous applause. They're very excited about it.
Yep.
Well, anything else to say as a coda, as a final word?
No, but we have another beanbag chair castle to build. And then
Are you guys coming back tonight, or is there more still going on?
No, I think Friday, right? Are you leaving Friday? I am too.
The session's all day,
Yep.
and then all day tomorrow too. But we're going to go home tomorrow.
Well, I apologize for stealing you from the Xbox Live session,
No, that was fine.
but I'm sure there's more to have on, and I'm really glad that we could get. We were debating how to do this. We decided not to do the Build Blogger Bash. Let you guys have fun. I think that worked out
It would
well.
have been too loud.
Yes,
Yeah.
it would have.
And this has been great because we've gotten to see a lot of
You
people.
guys talked about that with.
We did. Yep.
It was a good party.
It was. It was fun.
Great.
That sounds like fun. Mary Jo Foley, allaboutmicrosoft.com. Paul Thurrott, winsupersite.com. Thank you for joining us. If you just tuned in, do download the entire podcast because you're going to hear a lot more about Windows 8.
Plus, I got some serious air at least twice.
We have it on video. So this would be one if you've been listening to the audio that you might want to download the video. You can see Paul leap through the air. It's virtually a live demonstration of Angry Birds.
It was.
Yeah. In which Gabe Rivera plays the pigs.
I should have had Rafael hiding in the
middle. Rafael, not Gabe. Rafael Rivera plays the pigs. Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys. We do this show 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, live at twit.tv every Thursday. That means 1800 UTC. Please tune in for that. And if you miss it, don't worry. You can always get audio and video of it at twit.tv. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you next week. We'll have lots more to say, I'm sure, about Windows 8 over the coming months and maybe, who knows, maybe even years. So we'll see you next time on Windows Weekly. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Great show. Really good show. Wonderful.
Yes.
And it was long enough to give me time to download and try to install the 32-bit version. I just can't get it installed. I don't know why.
Maybe you're getting a truncated version.
Might be. It goes through the full install, and then I get a black screen. It just doesn't go any farther. So I suspect I'm doing it on a Mac. Come on. I suspect.
Actually, the computer Stephen was having a problem on. It's a Mac, and I haven't tried it on the Mac, so that maybe there's some issues there.
It's you know.
But it should support that kind of BIOS, and it should work.
Yeah. In fact, there's a blog post somebody's doing in boot camp, and it worked. So I'm sure. I'm sure I can get it working. I just have to bang on it some more. I've got both the 64-bit and the 32-bit version. I thought maybe 32 would work better, but it did not. All right, guys. Safe travels. Keep your tablet. Don't let them pry it out of your hands.
We have to give them back.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
All right, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.